been a couple of days since Miss South Africa 2024 has concluded, and a lot has happened. Our reigning queen, Mialahu, is well on her way to becoming one of the favorites at Miss Universe 2024, and she has been participating in Media Week. But moreover, Chidimma Adetshina, who felt forced, I suppose, to quit Miss South Africa 2024, has been having a roller coaster of a ride of a week of her own. We know, of course, that Chidimma quit Miss South Africa on the 8th of August, 2 days before finals, because it was discovered by the Ministry of Home Affairs in South Africa that her mother likely committed fraud and identity theft back in 2001, which had implications that Chidimma's citizenship status in South Africa wasn't what people supposed it to be. In other words, Chidimma's mother allegedly stole another South African woman's identity in order to register Chidimma back in the day, which would mean that Chidimma isn't really South African by law. I did make a whole video on this on the day that Chidimma did resign, but we have to make a continuation video on this because a lot has happened since then. For those of you who didn't know, in the beginning of Miss South Africa 2024, meaning when the top 30 were announced, a lot of Miss South Africa 2024 contestants were harassed and sort of ridiculed online for quote-unquote not being South African enough. This included, of course, all of the European contestants. We had an Asian contestant, Sherry Wang, and of course also Palesa Lombard, and a woman who ended up in the top 3 at Miss South Africa this year, Onalenda Constantine. They were all targeted for not being South African enough on X, which of course is the cesspool of opinions. But basically, people were throwing things and seeing what stuck, and unfortunately, like I've said before, even a broken clock is correct twice a day. And it was at the end of the day discovered that Chidimma's mother did likely commit identity theft and fraud in order to register Chidimma back in 2001. Chidimma was obviously a baby, so this would mean that she was entirely innocent in all of this. I've seen a lot of people saying that Chidimma is not innocent at all, but what could she have done as a literal infant? And Chidimma's father is Nigerian. Her mother is by all accounts Mozambican, although her mother does claim to have South African heritage, being of Zulu descent specifically, but we do not know. All we know is that her father is Nigerian and her mother is thought to be Mozambican, which would mean that Chidimma doesn't have a drop of South African blood if in fact her mother isn't from Zulu descent as she claims to be. And this had people riled up. People were initially not so riled up about citizenship or the legality of anything. It was about blood specifically. But later on, the Miss South Africa organization did initiate the investigation by the Ministry of Home Affairs in South Africa in order to once and for all say for certain whether or not Chidimma is legally South African or not. Now, the thing about being legally South African is Chidimma would have qualified for this had she been born before the year 1995, because before 1995, all you had to do in order to be regarded as a legal South African is to have been born on South African soil. We know that Chidimma was born in a Sowetan hospital. We know this for a fact, but unfortunately, Chidimma was born after 1995, and after 1995 the rules were changed. Now you have to not only be born on South African soil, but you must also have at least one parent who is either a legal citizen of South Africa or a legal permanent resident of South Africa. And if you look at what Chidimma's mother allegedly did, according to the Ministry of Home Affairs findings, Her parents were allegedly not citizens, nor were they legal permanent residents, which I think is so interesting, because being a permanent resident doesn't mean you're a citizen of a country. For example, I am a permanent resident in Namibia. I have been for 10 years because I was adopted by Namibians. So I'm not a citizen, but I'm a permanent resident, which means I can live here, I can work here, I can earn income here, etc., etc. And if I have children, they will be Namibian. I hope I've explained the legality of all this well enough, but this video we have to talk about what has been happening to Chidimma since she's quit Miss South Africa, because Chidimma withdrew from Miss South Africa, and one day later the Miss Universe Nigeria organization put out a statement inviting Chidimma to compete at Miss Universe Nigeria this year, which I think is so insane, because the Miss Universe Nigeria organization have already selected their top 24. They have put them out there into the world, and for them to then go and invite Chidimma to compete alongside these other 24 women who earned their spots in the top 24 at Miss Universe Nigeria, I think it smells fishy to me. I don't like it. It makes me feel icky that this organization is inviting Chidimma. It feels purely based on the fact that Chidimma has garnered so much attention. Whether or not it be positive or negative, we all know that in the business world, whether or not you get positive or negative attention is no matter. Attention is attention. And it feels like the Miss Universe Nigeria organization is reaching out to Chidimma now purely based on the fact that she has all of this hype surrounding her. It feels like they are trying to sort of engage viewership through Chidimma now, and I just don't like that. I wouldn't like it either if I were one of the other 24 women competing at Miss Universe Nigeria who have had to fight tooth and nail for their spot in the top 24, and for this organization to now just extend this hand out, you know, inviting Chidimma to compete. I don't like that. You guys know how I feel about Chidimma. I actually liked Chidimma as she was competing at Miss South Africa. I thought that she was a good contestant before she resigned. She was around my number 4, number 5-ish out of the 10 women competing. So I do think that Chidimma has a lot of potential, and I would have liked to see her compete. I do think that, you know, since her mother's wrongdoings weren't her fault and she did grow up primarily in South Africa, I do think that she deserved the opportunity to compete for the title of Miss South Africa. But, you know, for the sake of her safety, I'm glad she didn't. But now for Miss Universe Nigeria to extend this invitation to her, it doesn't feel right, you know. They could have said, Chidimma, we understand that your father is Nigerian. You're more than welcome to come and compete at Miss Universe Nigeria in the future, but not this year when they've already selected 24 women who have fought for their spots. I would feel really, really, really icky if I were one of those 24 contestants and this random South African, in quotes, girly was now announced to be part of our group when everybody else in the group has fought so hard to be there. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, you know. It smells like a smell that smells smelly. I just don't like it. So the Miss Universe Nigeria organization did extend this invitation to Chidimma, and she actually accepted it. She actually accepted it, which is sort of surprising.
Hello everyone, my name is Chidimma Adetshina, and I cannot start off this video without expressing my gratitude to the incredible people who have shown me so much love and so much support. Now, I have received an invitation from the Silverbird Group, who are the organizers of the Miss Universe Nigeria beauty pageant. And I say this with great excitement because I have decided to participate in the Miss Universe Nigeria 2024 beauty pageant. Now, I understand the expectations and responsibilities that come with this title, and I am so excited to embark on this journey. And I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to participating in Africa's most prestigious beauty pageant, Miss Universe Nigeria.
If I were Chidimma, listen, I see where she's coming from, because she's been through a difficult time. We don't even know whether or not she knew about her mother's citizenship status, because her mother and her were both required to give permission to the Ministry of Home Affairs to investigate them. So I don't know whether or not she herself knew about what her mother allegedly did all of those years ago, but I just feel like she could have benefited from laying low for a year or two, sorting out perhaps her citizenship and then coming back to Miss South Africa. That would have been a great redemption arc, you know, her going, sorting out her citizenship, coming back and saying, you know what? Yes, I've discovered some things. I have discovered that my citizenship status wasn't what it should have been. I have corrected it. I have taken action to correct it. I am sorry for any confusion this caused, but I'm back now, legally South African, ready to compete. Because since Chidimma did grow up in South Africa, she's been living there for so long, she does technically have the right to now start the application process for becoming a South African citizen, or becoming a permanent resident in the very least, and then moving forward with citizenship. It's possible. I just feel like this going to Miss Universe Nigeria is sort of rushing it. And there are so many people in Nigeria also who don't necessarily think that this is a great idea. Chidimma's father is undoubtedly Nigerian, okay? But there are a lot of people who now are saying that she has never really displayed any interest in Nigeria. Why did she then go to Miss South Africa first? It feels to some people like Miss Universe Nigeria is now Chidimma's consolation prize for everything that she's been through with Miss South Africa. And I have to sort of agree. I just feel like all of this is completely rushed. This is the wrong move for Chidimma. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people are going to disagree. People want the best for her. Believe me, I want the best for her as well. I just do not think that leaving South Africa to go to Nigeria to compete is a good idea. It's not beneficial for anyone except perhaps the viewership ratings for Miss Universe Nigeria, maybe? I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea for her to accept this offer, although she already has. So we're going to be seeing Chidimma competing at Miss Universe Nigeria this year. She has some big competition in Nikachi Douglas, who you guys know was in the top 5 at Miss World 2019. Of course, she is the certified girl's girl who hyped up Tony and Singh so much when she won. And she's a beautiful contestant. She's wonderful. And Chidimma has her work cut out for her. I just don't think that it's a wise move for Chidimma to go over to Nigeria now in order to compete at Miss Universe Nigeria after all that she's been through. You know, if anything, it would benefit Chidimma now more than ever just to lay low, get her citizenship sorted, and then come back to Miss South Africa. It just feels like she is making very, very, very rushed and irrational decisions right now, and it's just not a good thing. On the topic of Chidimma also, our newly crowned Miss South Africa has been on her media week, Mia Leroux, and of course we should have anticipated that the press were going to ask her about Chidimma as well, because after all, these women spent so much time together filming crown chases and all of that. And can I just say, okay, we have to step off the topic of Chidimma for 2 seconds. Mia, guys, I'm obsessed with our new Miss South Africa. Her media weeks have been going so well. It's been so educational and enlightening hearing her talk about her disability. You guys know that she has complete hearing loss actually, and she's had to get an implant, which she's explained this the best way. affects the nerves, like in her brain, sort of, so she can hear, but she doesn't hear the way that the rest of us hears things, you know. And I just think it's so interesting. So she still can't really hear the way that we hear, and she does prefer it when people look straight at her. She can see your mouth and things like that. And I just think that it's so incredible that she literally cannot hear words, yet she has been able to learn not one but 2 languages. Not only that, the language which we have heard her communicating in this whole time, English, is not even her mother language. So for most of her life, she said her first words at, I can't remember the exact age, but it was much later than, you know, normally able children usually are able to speak their first words. She said her first words later than usual, and of course they weren't in English, they were in Afrikaans, which she was commenting on some clouds in the sky. And then who knows at what age she actually started learning to speak English. That's quite interesting. And so my point being, I am obsessed with our Miss South Africa, and I'm struggling to see her doing anything wrong right now. But they have been asking her about Chidimma a lot during her media week, and she has firmly stood up for Chidimma, which is admirable, knowing that this is actually the unpopular opinion. She has been standing up for Chidimma, saying, listen, me and the rest of the Miss South Africa girlies, we know Chidimma, we know her heart, we know her soul, we know what kind of person she is. At the end of the day, she did deserve to compete. This is what Mia said. I do admire her standing up for Chidimma, and I agree with her opinion. Yes, I do think that Chidimma deserved to compete after all that she's been through, you know, after all of the time that she's spent in South Africa. But I do still think that it was a good call for her to resign. I was under the impression that she was going to sort out her citizenship and come back. But now this thing with Miss Universe Nigeria, I don't know how I feel about it. I do not know how I feel about it. I think it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea, specifically because it is stepping on people's toes, and I just don't think that that's a good thing, okay? I don't think that it's good that these other 24 Nigerian contestants are now having to deal with the awkwardness of this all. I don't think it's good that Chidimma herself is now putting herself in a position where she looks like she is accepting the Miss Universe Nigeria offer as sort of a consolation prize after having to resign from Miss South Africa. And listen, I have a lot of respect for Miss South Africa's rule regarding citizenship. That's their rule. That is their rule, and rules are there to be followed. I just am empathetic towards Chidimma. Also, a lot of people have also mentioned that we should have empathy for the woman who lost her identity. I don't know that woman. Of course, I have empathy for someone who lost their identity. I just don't know who that is. How much am I supposed to say about someone that I just frankly do not know? I don't know. I know Chidimma. I know who she is. I don't elaborate on Chidimma's mother, who was the actual person who committed the crime, because I do not know the woman. We talk about pageantry on here. I'm not legal eagle over here. So I actually did want Chidimma just to get her citizenship sorted so that she can come back to Miss South Africa and have that redemption arc. But I do not think that this Miss Universe Nigeria thing is going to end up well for her. I don't think it's going to end up well for her, because imagine if she loses Miss Universe Nigeria, the amount of ridicule she is going to receive then. She's already receiving some negative criticisms from Nigerians themselves, who also feel like Chidimma's heart isn't really in it. And if she wins even, imagine those other 24 women and their families. Imagine what they're gonna say, knowing that Chidimma was invited by the organization themselves. Oh, that's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. It's not good. By the way, the other day when I posted my Chidimma video, there was a comment about, you know, Rena's citizenship status should be checked because she looks Chinese and has an Afrikaans accent. And like to say, how dare you? How dare you? I do not have an Afrikaans accent. Listen, my English teacher would be very sad to hear that I have a Afrikaans accent. For those who don't know, this is an Afrikaans accent.
Good evening, Candice. Welcome on Top Billing. At the age of 23, you became an international fashion model. How did it happen? How do you stay focused on positive things in your life? And what kind of exercise do you do to keep such a perfect body?
I don't sound like that. I try my best to have the Bonang accents, okay? But now I'm very self-aware about how I'm saying accents. So I'm gonna stop saying it because it does sound slightly Afrikaans-ish. I've also seen a lot of people commenting on Mia's accent. Now, of course, she does pronounce certain things strangely because of her hearing impairment, like s and things like that, but she does speak with a very Afrikaans accent. But it makes sense because that's the language that she was probably raised in. So I will excuse that instant of an Afrikaans accent. And listen, I am Afrikaans, okay? I am Afrikaans. I don't know about being Chinese. Do I look Chinese? I've never looked myself in the mirror and been like, you know what, you look so Asian. Because both my parents look white as can be. My mother literally has like red hair, green eyes. My father looks white as hell. My whole family, well, there are certain members of my family, come to think of it. I should actually like maybe do a DNA test or something. I don't know, let me know. I've seen some comments of people likening me to sort of Southeast Asian figures, but I've never gotten straight up Chinese. Let me know what you guys think about that. Anyway, this video is going on for way too long, going off a tangent. This is what happens when I just speak freely from the heart. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. Chidimma is just having such a year. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.